All right, team, back for another episode of the Fireside PM podcast. This has been one I've been meaning to do for a while because I'm going to kind of reflect on 5 hard lessons that I've learned in my PM and PM leadership career that hopefully you're watching this and you're in the early or mid part of your career, or maybe you're in a leadership role already and it's good to kind of review some of these important things. So hopefully it's helpful. And all I ask is that if you like it and you found it was useful, give it a like and share, and let me know in the comments if I missed any that you wanted to add on, and we can maybe create a whole running thread here. So the first one is one of the hardest. I think partly it's because PMs are always expected to be, the smartest person in the room, or there's this like, oh, we got to show the engineers how we got it all figured out, and we got to bring all the cross-functional stakeholders together, and they have to follow us. And so it's very tempting to not ask basic questions because you're worried about maybe exposing what you don't know. And what I can tell you is that while you may take like a slight tax by asking tons of questions, your judgment, your confidence, and the decisions that you make are going to be so much better because you've built up this base of understanding that it will be 1,000 times the whatever cost you pay for asking those questions. The other thing is that the cost you pay is going to be borne by you whether you like it or not. So if you're not sure about something, you're not sure how this technology works, you're not sure how this customer makes this decision, you're not sure how this is integrated into this other workflow, whatever it might be, the reality is that if that blind spot becomes an issue later, it's going to be way more expensive for you to fix than if you just ask now. So when in doubt, ask questions, ask lots of questions. And as a senior leader, when I've had people on my team or in my organizations or peers asking questions, I never judge them because I actually feel like, okay, it's important that we have like a baseline understanding and we level set on, how we're all looking at this. So this is in everyone's interest for all of us to have the same shared information. So I see this happen so many times. And then the other added tax of not asking questions is you have anxiety. Not only do you make poor decisions, you have less confidence about those decisions. So ask early, ask often. It is okay to ask like, hey, what does this abbreviation mean? It is okay to ask, these customers, why do they buy this product versus this other one? Or it's okay to ask, like, we keep talking about this key feature. I'm not sure why is it so different than all the other features? Why is this one so important? Or why didn't we explore this direction? Or why did we explore this direction? These are totally reasonable. Totally. Ask, ask, ask. Next thing is, it is also possible and quite common for people to focus on the local maxima, like they want to optimize for the best result within a very narrowly constrained decision or set of decisions, versus the global maxima, which is like, hey, we want to optimize for a big outcome, kind of much more broad, much more kind of first principles thinking. And it's not because the PM isn't smart. Generally, they are super smart. The problem is that the PM is making a call to get some wins. And global maxima debates and decisions usually result in conflict and challenging assumptions and probably encountering opposition. Whereas local maxima, you can kind of thread the needle and everyone kind of walks away feeling good enough. And then you get the thing approved, or you get the launch out the door, you get the feature shipped, whatever it is. That's fine in that kind of narrow, short-term view. But when you think about your own work history, think about all the times where you're like, yeah, we weren't solving the real problem, or we weren't going after the big opportunity, or, we were just kind of so in the weeds that we lost orientation on where the hell this whole project was going. So even though, much like the earlier tip about being vulnerable and asking lots of questions, looking at global maxima questions and global maxima discussions is a little bit painful early, but man, does it pay off. Man, does it pay off. Because if you are in constant local maxima optimization kind of chains, the end of that journey is going to be potentially far off from what could have been. And so that takes me into the next piece of advice, which is something I give to people about careers, about product decisions, about new startups, is minimizing maximum regret. But in this case, I do think about it more as a PM career. So the classic one will be a PM is saying, hey, I'm thinking about either staying in my current org, everybody knows me, I'm doing well, or, I'm thinking about maybe going to this other opportunity, could be internal, could be external, and, it's a bigger risk, but, it could be kind of a huge thing. And when I look back in my career, I almost want to say especially, but I'll say even in those cases where I took a big risk and it didn't pan out, I really don't regret it at all. And similarly, there are plenty of times where I didn't take the big risk and I did fine, but I always wonder should I have asked for that opportunity, or should I have, pressed on this decision a little bit differently, or should I have more effectively pitched, this opportunity to the broader organization, whatever it was. It also works in work-life balance and life decisions where, there have been times where I've made calls that were good for my career, but really were very taxing for my family or myself. And in hindsight, nobody really is going to care about line 12 of your resume, but your kids will care about how you showed up when they were 12 years old or 6 years old, or your spouse will care about how you showed up when you were on your 12th wedding anniversary, whatever it might be. So try and minimize maximum regret. And we are often kind of sleepwalking through careers and life such that you can kind of walk off a cliff without even realizing it. So that's lesson 3. Lesson 4 is to classic thing. We all know, start with the customer, work your way, backwards from that. Customer, get out of the building. No matter how many times we say it to ourselves and to each other, we invariably get caught up in internal politics, internal org resourcing, internal. And while cross-functional collaboration and leadership, it is crucial. But if you've nailed that and you don't understand your customer, you don't understand the market, it's like being an expert driver without knowing where the roads are leading. And before you know it, you might be driving in circles or, driving into a brick wall. So I rarely have seen a case where a team failed because they really understood their customers. But I've seen lots of cases where they failed because they kind of understood their customers, but that missing 20 degrees of clarity really screwed them and caused them to make choices that seemed fine at the time. But had they really understood their customers, they probably wouldn't have had to debate that decision very much at all. So know your customers inside out, upside down, backwards and forwards. Like, you've got to know your customers. And for people who are building consumer products, it's a little bit easier. But for anybody that's doing B2B or enterprise, it is so easy to get trapped in your own little kind of Zoom echo chamber or conference room kind of navel gazing. You got to get out there. You got to be with customers. You got to feel their pain. You got to see what it's like. You got to understand the whole context, and then realize that your product is a small part of it, and you've got to play a role in an existing world. Rarely can you say, my technology is so awesome, the whole universe is going to kind of rotate around me. Okay, this next point is a related one, which is, it is very tempting to fall in love with technology. So right now it's Gen AI. Maybe before that it was ML or Web3 or, data science or social or local or mobile or crowd, like whatever. There's like a million things that are hot at any given time during the course of human history. And it is very, very tempting to just get all drunk and exuberant about the technology or product kind of meme of the day. Like maybe now it's founder mode or whatever you want to focus on. Product-led growth, they're all fun and they're all great. But they're not really the end game. They're just a means to the end. And so if you get too worked up and wrapped around the axle on some particular concept, you end up looking for, everything that looks like a nail because you've got this hammer. And sometimes the customer has a problem that needs a solution, and it's not a hammer driving a nail into it, but it needs a screw, a hinge, it needs to have the hole plugged, or it needs epoxy, whatever you want the metaphor to be. But it's not necessarily like, oh, Gen AI to the rescue. There might be many solutions for which Gen AI is awesome, but you only need to look at the hundreds or thousands of Gen AI startups out there who are still desperately trying to find revenue. And because they've kind of exhausted all of the pilot budget and the kind of like, oh, we can't be left behind, we need to do something in AI, let's work with this startup budget. That's gone. And so you've got to go back to solving problems and let go of the hammer. Maybe the hammer is the right hammer for the right customer and the right job, but not everyone. And there might be another tool that you need to build and develop, and that'll be the next great thing. All right, so those were the 5 lessons. Let's see if I can recap them. I'm not going to try and remember off the top of my head. All right, first is be vulnerable. Ask a lot of questions. It is okay not to know. It is okay not to know. It is not okay to stay silent. Okay? You have to find your blind spots and address them as soon as you can, even if you have to look a little stupid. It's okay. It's better to look stupid on day 1 than to go all in on some crazy bet on day 100 that could have been avoided. Global maxima. Solve the big problem. Don't get sucked in to going along to get along and just get a launch out the door and velocity for its own sake. If there's a really fundamental problem that's not being addressed or a fundamental assumption that's flawed, have the conversation. It's for the good of the team in the long run. Minimize maximum regret. Always use the exercise 10, 20, 30 years from now. When I think back, will I regret either not doing something, passing something up, betting on something, whatever it is. The regrets are many, they come in many flavors, but oftentimes you could be unconsciously doing something that you will regret later. And it's usually regrets of inaction. That's usually the most common one. Inaction in that you didn't go for it, or you didn't say the hard thing, or you didn't address the hard problem, or you didn't put yourself out there. Know your customer better than your org. You can assume that you know your customer because it's comfortable, because rarely will a customer show up in your meeting and say, "You're wrong, Tom. Like, you're making an assumption that's incorrect." So you can kind of speak confidently about certain customer insights and workflows and journeys, having not really dug into it, and that will bite you in the long run. So yes, you should know your end counterpart, your design, your marketing, sales. You should know the C-suite. That's great. But the ultimate C-level officer is your customer. And take all the great hot tech and product ideas, creative brainstorming session output. It's great, but it has to be in service of solving a large customer problem in a way that is fundamentally better than their alternatives to justify why they should use your product versus just sticking with inertia. And time again, we get so worked up about this new technology or this new architecture or this new framework that we just lose sight of it, and then we just look for problems that fit our solution versus designing solutions that fit real problems. So if this was helpful to you and you want to keep the conversation going, there's a few ways you can do it. I'm teaching a bunch of classes on Maven. In fact, I have, if you're watching this soon after I've recorded this video, I have a new cohort spinning up that's going to be really cool. It's called the Back Channel, and it's going to be a group of 6 to 9 PMs who are going to work together for the next 3 months. And we'll meet, let's see, I think it is weekly. Yeah, we're going to meet weekly, I think on end of the day Tuesday Pacific time. Or is it Wednesday? I think it's end of the day Wednesday Pacific time. And you can go there and sign up, and you have to apply because we want to make sure the cohort kind of is complementary, and we don't want to have all people from Meta or all people from Amazon or all people from startups. We want to have a nice mix. We want to have similar work experience, but it's going to be safe space, confidential, and we're going to go over career and life planning, but we're also going to go over real problems that we're all facing at any given week, and we're going to have a lot of show and share and give feedback and peer advice, and of course I'll be there to give maybe a little bit more expert advice and share some of my experiences. And then we're also going to work on our go forward career and life roadmap. So I've done this kind of thing in the past. It's been incredibly rewarding for everyone. So if that's of interest, check it out. I also have a shorter Maven class around nailing your product reviews, which is also super interactive. So check that out. It's all at maven.com/Tom. You can follow me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/Tom, and then subscribe to my Substack, firesidepm.substack.com. And then if you want one-on-one kind of expert coaching, you can reach out to me at tomleungcoaching.com. But and then what else? Oh, you can subscribe to the podcast, Fireside PM. So hopefully this is useful to you. Let me know in the comments what you think about this advice, and if there's advice, what should advice number 6 have been? Did you agree with 1 through 5? If not, like, which ones did you disagree with? And then what do you think number 6 should have been? I'll definitely be watching the comments to see if people have any thoughts, and I'll try to reply to as many of them as I can. With that, we'll get back to work. Thanks, everybody. Bye, team.